Hello, everyone. We have some uncomfortable things to talk about today. We need to talk about Lloyd Evans' latest video that some are calling an apology video. He doesn't apologize in the video, so I don't know why they call it that, but it's a video where he details and admits to and confesses that he has regularly cheated on his wife with prostitutes for the last 4 years. And before we talk about it, there is a question of whether or not this is any of our business. In his video, he states time and time again that this is none of your business. Unfortunately, that doesn't make sense when he is the one that made this public knowledge to a large audience. Kim Servo tried to blow the whistle on his sex scandal on Reddit. It was a Reddit post where she details what he had revealed to her. And it got deleted by the mods. The Reddit post was taken down, and honestly, only a handful of people would have even known about it. That would have been that. But Lloyd Evans decided that he would go and blast his subscribers with the full nitty-gritty details of the scandal. And then he goes on to blame her and the JW community for bringing the shame upon his family. He doesn't blame himself for bringing the shame on his family. So yeah, because he's the one that made this public knowledge to a large audience, I would say it's our business. But there's more compelling reasons for why the JW community needs to be discussing this. The other thing is that it's literally our business. There was money exchanged here. On his channel, he often says that if you want to donate to him, well, you know, if he said just if you want to donate to me, that would be okay. But it's very important how the wording is here. My channel is made possible through the generous support of my viewers, including hundreds of patrons. If you would like to support my work, you can do so using the following methods: Patreon, PayPal, so on and so on. The stated purpose of donations on Lloyd Evans' channel is for his work, not his work with prostitutes in Thailand. That being said, I'm sure there are plenty of people who sent him money thinking that money was going towards his work. We can argue all day long about whether or not donations should be used for personal things. I personally don't think that that's appropriate, but that's just my standards. I understand that plenty of his patrons are fine with him using their donations for personal use. However, I'm sure there's plenty of them who explicitly would not donate had they known that some portion of his donations were going towards sex vacations with prostitutes. That's a fair statement. In fact, his patrons are going down, from what I understand, even as we speak. Knowing that, Kim did the right thing in exposing the scandal, because there are people who would not donate if they would have known this information. They needed to know this information to stop consenting to giving their money away to a sex addict. And that's not my words, as we'll see in a moment. Those are his words. Let's get into it. Oh boy, oh boy. All right. So first, we need to make sure that I'm not just talking out of my ass here. He really did confess and admit to cheating on his wife with prostitutes for 4 years. Let's play that footage.
Posting pretending to be Kim said the following. Some weeks back, Lloyd openly and without warning notified me of his infidelity and engagement with prostitutes on a very regular basis. It was maybe, I'm going to say, 2 or 3 months in between.
So he's scoffing at the idea that it was regularly and says, oh, it was only 2 or 3 months in between. In other words, every 3 months he visited prostitutes. And to Lloyd Evans, that's not regularly. And he's really smug about it too, which is kind of his pattern, but
I would go to see sex workers. I didn't have an opportunity to do it on a regular basis.
he definitely would have wanted to, is what it sounds like.
I'm not sure I would need to.
Not sure if I would need to. There is some question on whether or not he would need to visit prostitutes more than 3 times every 3 months.
So that part is factually untrue.
Wow.
And libelous.
So regularly does not mean every 3 months. That's untrue and libelous.
I'm going to say. Lloyd openly and without warning notified me of his infidelity and engagement with prostitutes on a very regular basis over many years. Many years? I think I'm going to say 3 or 4 years.
Many years, many years. No, I'd say it was 3 or 4 years. All right, your definition of many years is up to you, but it's certainly more than 1. It's certainly more than 2. There you have it. There's the admission that I'm not lying to you. The video is still up to my knowledge. There's been some talk about whether or not he's going to pull this confession video down. But as of right now, I believe this video is still on his channel. All right, let's move to the next thing. The fact that he says that this is nobody's business. All right. Let's go pull that up.
At the very beginning. So, again, this is all stuff that I shouldn't have to share with anyone. I'm not in a judicial committee meeting. I'm not sat in front of 3 elders.
This is all very funny to him, by the way. You'll notice as we're going over this. I don't think it's funny at all. I think it's pretty serious. But anyways, he says here that it's nobody's business and that he feels like people are coming at him like a judicial committee of elders. That's interesting. That's interesting. Anytime you want to call out abusive and destructive, unacceptable behavior, you're going to see a lot of people give this sort of clap back that, oh, you're being like an elder. What is this, a judicial committee? Let me make something clear to you guys. There is something specifically wrong with the way judicial meetings and elders carry out their business. When they decide that you're disfellowshipped, you are no longer able to communicate with your friends and loved ones. They deny you for a time period unless you kiss their butts for a long enough period of time. They deny you the ability to have contact with your friends and family. That's the real cultish power of the elders and the judicial committee. That's what's so morally and ethically wrong with how those proceedings go down. There isn't anything wrong with calling out unacceptable behavior. Doing so does not automatically turn you into an elder in a judicial committee, as I said. All right, but let's move on.
It's nobody's business. It just isn't.
It is.
But apparently you all need to know what I do with my dick.
That's disgusting. And he just thinks it's so funny. He's just having a ball. He's just like convulsing with laughter here. Just gross. All right, he's going to go on to talk about his sexual repression.
That's what all of this boils down to. Everyone, the world needs to know what I do with my dick. So, as I've written about in my book, like many who were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, I was subjected to sexual repression. Like many of you watching, I was told, you're not allowed to wank, you're not allowed to be gay, you're not allowed to have sex outside of marriage. Oh, and by the way, if you do get married, you're not allowed to get married to someone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness. Oh, and just another little caveat on this list, no porn.
Yeah, keep in mind that this is the face of the XJW community. He's by far the most popular ex-Jehovah's Witness on social media that I can think of. And his big defense for his actions is sexual repression. He's been out of the cult for over 10 years or something. And he's still using this get out of jail free card. Oh, I was sexually repressed. You know, we can talk about sexual oppression and you know, how severe it is and how much responsibility that negates from a person. We can talk about that in some detail, but we don't need to. All we need to know is that he is blaming his behavior on sexual repression instead of owning up to his actions, which I personally find to be, well, pretty disgusting. Because, hell, I was 21 before I had sex, was when I got married. I could claim that I was sexually repressed as well. And a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses would probably agree with that and probably relate to that. It's part of your manipulative power that you say things like this. However, there's plenty of us who, sexually repressed or not, did not cheat on our spouse for 4 years with prostitutes. Eventually, you need to own up to what you've done here, Lloyd, and stop deflecting it. Stop shifting the blame onto everyone else. That's why I think it's funny that people are calling this an apology video. All right. Let's see here. Let's move on. We're going to get into...
I described some of these issues.
He's talking about his book. Basically, he wrote The Reluctant Apostate, and he wrote a lot of his sexual blunders within his marriage as an attempt to keep things from popping up later down the road.
In The Reluctant Apostate, just to mitigate against anyone who might want to rake up dirt on me in the future. And I talked about the fact that when we moved to Croatia, it was because Diana had discovered me chatting with girls online. And when I say girls, I mean women online.
It's so funny. It's so funny that with all of your blunders sexually within your relationship and all the scandals surrounding you, all the allegations, you still refer to women as girls. I can't begin to explain to you guys the pattern of red flags that we've been seeing here with this gentleman. At the very least, it shows immaturity and lack of respect for women, in my opinion. And that's all I'm going to say on that bit. But yeah, quit blaming this on your sexual repression, Lloyd, and then maybe the community wouldn't be so upset with you right now. All right. We got to move on. There's a lot more shocking stuff that this man says that I don't think people necessarily caught the full implications of.
Constant flow of propaganda due to the language barrier. And the channel I have, if you think about it, ironically, the channel is here. The channel exists, and Lloyd Evans as an activist exists because I am seriously messed up sexually. And now the camera's gone again.
So the camera cuts out on him there, but I hope you heard what he said. He said his whole channel exists because he is seriously messed up sexually. Again, the most popular XJW YouTuber, the most supported XJW YouTuber. His channel exists because he is messed up sexually. And that's what people are supporting. His videos are the ones that they're sharing to their friends and family, trying to wake them up out of the cult. This guy, this channel. This is why this is in the realm of things that ex-Jehovah's Witnesses need to be discussing. Because do we want this man to be representing the community as largely as he does right now? It's a fair question, and it's worth discussing. All right, let's move on.
That they're not sabotaging it by muting my microphone. I don't. So I can't even remember what I was saying. Yeah, anyway. I developed ways of coping with my sexual repression that were not unhealthy. That were unhealthy. And these continue.
You gotta wonder if that's a Freudian slip, right? Not unhealthy. I mean, they are unhealthy. Gross.
On into my relationship with Deanna up until I should add very, very recently. So because things were less than ideal in my marriage, I went outside my marriage.
Do you hear what he just did there? Not a lot of people picked up on this, but he just blamed the relationship not being ideal for why he cheated on his wife for 4 years. Again, he has shifted responsibility and the blame for his actions outside of the realm of his control, outside of him. Unbelievable.
Who with is, again, none of this is anyone's business, but there were no affairs, there were no because I haven't really wanted a relationship with anyone else. I haven't looked for one, but I have looked for sex. And everyone's saying, don't say anything else, don't say anything else.
I don't know why you continued, but I'm glad that this has come to light. Let's go on. Let's go to... Oh, yeah, I love this. In a minute, he's going to call everybody sick. Actually, I think it's back a little bit.
Cracking on anything. 1,534 viewers. Everyone likes a bit of gossip, don't they? You're all sick, as far as I'm concerned.
The ex-Jehovah's Witness community is sick, says the guy who is in the same video confessing unacceptable, atrocious behavior. That's, man, you gotta love that. The whole time laughing is moving on. Moving on. All right.
Calibrated based on assumptions, based on an illusion that I felt forced to perpetuate based on our relationship. And seriously, alien encounters, fuck you. Seriously. You were grooming a 14-year-old. What? What? I'm really, I really despair at XJWs, quite frankly. I feel like following what Kim Silvio has done, my trust in fellow former Jehovah's Witnesses is minimal.
What about our trust in you, Lloyd Evans? How can you stand on any kind of a high horse and condemn the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, talking about how they've ruined your trust? How can you stand on your high horse about anything? How can you criticize the Jehovah's Witnesses for that matter, knowing what we know about you now? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Pillowgate, people would not shut up for months about Pillowgate. And we're supposed to not talk about this. If Toni Morris had done the things that you have admitted to doing, Lloyd Evans, it would be the largest religious scandal in quite a while. And, people say all the time, well, he's not controlling a cult and influencing the ideas and opinions of a bunch of people. Are you sure? It seems to me like he's got quite a bit of influence and quite a bit to say, and shapes a lot of opinions. I think that it's a pretty good comparison. Let's see if he goes on here for a
It's
second.
down to like 1% battery power. Because this is what this cult, and now my camera's frozen again.
This whole video is a cluster. A lot of technical difficulties. All right, let's move on. By the way, something to keep in mind that this video where he sets the record straight that people are calling an apology video, it was monetized. He made $3,000 off of tips and super chats on this video where he is deeply ashamed of what he's done. He's still taking in people's money, even in this video. Right here you can see 1999 somebody donated just so that he'll read their comment live on air. I think part of the reason why a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses don't want to say anything about this scandal, they don't want to believe it's true. A lot of them, they got their books signed when he was going around signing everybody's books. They have pictures with him they met him, or maybe he liked one of their comments on one of his videos. And so people are legitimately starstruck by this man. And that's a powerful thing. But in order for us to not be hypocrites, we have to criticize and talk about this enormous scandal that he has made popular himself. All right. Moving on. Oh, this commenter, by the way, is offering air tickets for him and a trip to Vegas. In my opinion, somebody who claims to be messed up sexually doesn't need to be in Vegas, but what do I know? I mean, he's supposed to be taking a break, supposed to be healing and reflecting. All right, let's move on.
For you and your family to travel anywhere in the world, come to Texas, it's warmer here, or go to Vegas. Quit blaming a victim, dude. You cheat on your wife. It isn't about the org. Focus on you and your family. Yes, I cheated on my wife. But Brandon, Mr. kind of saintly Brandon, who's never done anything wrong in his life and has always had total mastery over his penis.
I hope you guys can appreciate that this guy just admitted that he doesn't think it's reasonable for people to have total mastery over their penis. Throughout this video, he talks about his sexual repression and his penis as if something that's completely out of control, and that he should not be made responsible over him. He should not be made responsible over his penis. I just want that to sink in for a minute, because this guy has been closely involved with sex abuse survivors. And if we embrace him going forward, he will continue to be in close contact and association with sex abuse survivors. He does not have total mastery over his penis, people. Plain and simple. His words, not mine. Wow. I'm going to try to move forward here. By the way, I'm doing this all in one take because I don't have video editing software.
Having massive problems. It's caused by, sexual incompatibility issues due to the fact that we never, we've had problems in that area that have come to light due to the fact that I've been unfaithful and Deanna.
So right there, he's talking about his relationship being less than ideal and how him and his wife are incompatible. And,
has found out. And so we had all of that conversation, and I was really touched that both producer Bob, I've got to be very careful to call her producer Bob and not use her real name, both producer Bob and Kim Silvio were massively understanding in the phone call, in the Zoom call.
So throughout this video, he likes to highlight the fact that people turned on him. And I'm sorry I'm doing so many air quotes. Understandably, I'm a little anxious over this. It's a very emotionally charged subject. He very often talks about the fact that Kim, the whistleblower, and others turned on him. At first, they were very supportive. I need you guys to understand something, and Lloyd Evans, I need you to understand something. When you reveal something like this to your friends, there's a buffer period where the implications are so massive that you don't know how to proceed. You don't know how to respond. I think that that's a case of what's happened here. I think Kim initially was supportive, and then other things came to light, and she had time to think about it. And the more you think about this situation, the more horrible it is. And then, yes, she had a change of heart. Partly because she worked with him on the JW Watch forum, and there is some responsibility there, I think, if you are one of the team members for a forum that is fighting abuse and hypocrisy. Yeah, maybe you have a responsibility to call out abuse and hypocrisy when you see it. Um, there's a point. There's a point that I need to make that's earlier in the video that's really puts all of this into perspective for me. We're about to find out what Lloyd Evans considers to be abuse.
And they're going to want to know what's on the internet about their dad. I'm not going to lie, viewers. I can't imagine feeling that much different if my home had been burgled and I'd been held at gunpoint while my personal possessions were rifled through by total strangers. I can't imagine feeling that much different than I feel now. It's the feeling of being abused. For me, abuse, and I'm not talking about child sexual abuse, that's something completely different, but in its purest form, to abuse someone is to do something to them that they absolutely don't want you to do, that will have far-reaching implications on them.
So his definition of abuse is when somebody does something to you that you really don't want them to do, that will have far-reaching consequences. By his own terminology, what about the abuse you subjected your wife to for 4 years, Lloyd Evans? She did not want you to cheat on her with prostitutes. You did this behind her back. It was secret. You did not consider the ramifications of that course of action, that repeated course of action. By your terminology, you have abused your wife for 4 years repeatedly. And everyone wants us to be quiet about this. Everyone is bashing Kim and bullying her for drawing attention to it. No. If you're partnered with this guy and he shares this information with you and you're helping him run a forum that's calling out abuse and hypocrisy, you have a duty to say something. How do you think Kim slept at night knowing this information? I want to make it very clear that Kim is not to be blamed or bullied. She did the right thing. That's all there is to it. So he went to Thailand after being caught to do some soul searching. Yeah, that's when he decided he was going to take his break, his mental health break. He decided to go to Thailand, which is known for sex trafficking, by the way. The man who just admitted that he doesn't have total mastery over his penis and that his whole channel is based on the fact that he is seriously sexually messed up, his words. He goes to Thailand where sex trafficking is a very real and prevalent problem. And also, fun fact, over 60% of the girls who do sex work and prostitution in Thailand are under 18. Not good. Not good. I think that a man who is a self-professed sex addict, um, I don't know how we can trust him to have carefully vetted these girls in other countries for 4 years. There's at least some room to question everything that this man has said and done, given the fact that he's been so deceptive and so untrustworthy. I will go ahead and say that, and I don't think that that's unfair. All right. Moving on.
Kim Silvio is also now denying that there was any mental health component to any of this.
You know why Kim denied that there was a mental health component to this? Because his mental health break, he decided to take vacationing in Thailand. It's a very suspicious place to go when you need to do soul searching. There's more on that front if you listen carefully.
So apparently, according to Kim Silvio, I've been misleading people by saying it has anything to do with mental health. And this is going to be difficult for me to read, because these are messages I sent on the WhatsApp on New Year's Eve when I was suicidal.
Oh boy, listen to this message. He's talking about how it's New Year's Eve and he's suicidal. This is the correspondence he had with Kim.
4 and a bit hours to New Year's Eve in Patong, where the party is.
In Patong, where the party is. I want you to Google search Patong, Thailand. It's known for excessive parties and sex tourism. That's where he went to do his soul searching. That's where he is as the ball is about to drop, and he claims to have been suicidal. It's really hard to take that seriously. And I understand why Kim, after reviewing the messages, started to put things together. Wait, he's on a mental health break. He's suicidal at a New Year's Eve party in the sex tourism capital of the world. A man who is admitted to being addicted to prostitutes. How do you think that went down? All right, but let's give the devil his due, because he's going to feign emotion here in a minute.
Just overwhelmed more than ever by how pointless it all is. Closer to the abyss than ever.
All right, so that was a very brief Emmy award-winning performance. How can I be so cold and so sure? There's not a single drop of wetness on his face, guys. I'm gonna zoom in as much as I can. There's just none. There's no tears. I mean, yeah, you can argue that sometimes people cry without tears, but the gravity of what he's done, and that's the display of remorse that we get here. Just a few seconds of him covering his face and pretending to cry. No real tears.
But don't worry, I'm too much of a coward to do anything because I love Deanna and the kids.
Do you see any tears?
To which
Do you? I'm just wondering because I don't. I I really don't.
Kim Silvio replied, "No matter how close the abyss looks, there is always a point, your beautiful girls."
I'm very happy that in the moment, Kim did take him at face value and tried to support him and comfort him. And that tells me that she's a good-hearted person. Yeah, I don't see the tears. Let's move on.
So the next message is from me, at an empty restaurant now, but heading to the bar to see through New Year's Eve.
All right, so a couple of minutes have passed by. He's completely composed. No wetness on his face. He never wipes his eyes or anything. And now, in the correspondence with Kim, he lays out that he's at a restaurant. Now he's heading to a bar. Suicidal people often just go from like start bar hopping and party it up, right? I mean, I've felt that way off and on in my life, and it wasn't something that I did when I was out enjoying the evening. It's kind of weird, but let's continue.
Then plan to head home with some edibles.
Yeah, he's even gonna go get some edibles, and you know, why not? To be fair, maybe the edibles are to help him cope with his overwhelming suicidal thoughts and feelings. But I think that if you were reading those messages and you were thinking about it, you were like, okay, so this guy, he's doing what exactly while he's taking his mental break? He's where while he's having suicidal thoughts? Just doesn't add up. I'm sorry. It just doesn't add up. It's wild stuff. Oh, yeah, I wanted to point this out. Like I said, it's only been minutes. It's only been minutes since he's had his little outburst of emotion.
Cannabis.
And you're going to see him.
Maybe that's something I'm also a villain
You're going to
for.
see his body language.
To which Kim replied, "Well, that's a plan. Hang in there. The dark time will pass. I will say Happy New Year as it's nearly midnight here and I am very drunk." That's from Kim.
See that?
Occasionally I would...
See that? You know what he's doing right there? He's grooving. He's grooving. He's actually grooving. Like, I've only seen people move like that when they're having a good time. Maybe that's just me. I could be wrong. Let's move on. He does it some more in a minute, too.
So I replied to that last time in a community of people who were trying to leave behind an incredibly judgmental mindset, and some will do so more successfully than others. For example, right, full disclosure, I was pissed at Javi for going...
First he was grooving. Now he's smiling. It's not even been 5 minutes since his little emotional outburst about suicide. I don't buy it. Maybe I'm a bad person, but he's already plainly laid out that he is a dishonest person and that you cannot trust him. He has lied. Think about how many lies it takes to cheat on your wife with prostitutes for 4 years. Not only is he a sex addict, you have to be a compulsive liar, a perpetual liar. to pull that off. There's no other way around it. This man is a dishonest liar. And he should not be the standard for activism. Keep going.
Going quiet on me during this period because Javier Ortiz is basically my best friend. And for whatever reason, he kind of went quiet during this whole period. And I need to be ultra careful. It's called, yeah.
Now he's laughing. Carrying on, having a good time. It's not like he cheated on his wife for 4 years or anything. Yeah, that was shortly after his fake emotional outburst. Cool. Moving on. All right, so we already saw this, but it probably, there might be part of it that we didn't see.
Posting pretending to be Kim said the following. Some weeks back, Lloyd openly and without warning notified me of his infidelity and engagement with prostitutes on a very regular basis. It was maybe, I'm going to say 2 or 3 months in between. I would go to see sex workers. I didn't have an opportunity to do it on a regular basis. I'm not sure I would need to. So that part is factually untrue and libelous, I'm going to say. Lloyd openly and without warning notified me of his infidelity and engagement with prostitutes on a very regular basis over many years. Many years? I think I'm going to say 3 or 4 years. If that's many years, then fine. Amongst other matters that don't need to be specifically mentioned. Well, this doesn't need to be mentioned, does it?
Yes, it does. It very much does.
Kim continues, this was shortly before. Apparently, I have to account for how I spend my money when this is my job.
So I really want to focus on this for a second, guys, because I made the claim that on his channel, he solicits money for his work. That's how it's stated. When people asked him, hey, this is donated money that you are using to buy prostitutes with, this was his response.
Calls reproach to be brought upon his name and therefore must not be spoken about. So apparently I have to account for how I spend my money when this is my job. So well, like when a doctor receives money for helping people, apparently he needs to account for, you know, what holidays he goes on, how he spends his money in his private time because he's helping people. Apparently, oh no, sorry, he doesn't. Apparently, I owe everybody an explanation for how I spend my wages.
They're not wages, Lloyd. They're donations. Doctors do not live off of a donation basis. A doctor earns wages. You do not. You receive donations in good faith, and you've broken that faith. It's very important people understand that distinction. You solicited for donations for your work. My channel is made possible through the generous support of my viewers, including hundreds of patrons. If you would like to support my work, you can do so using the following methods. Patreon, whatever. This is his channel, Lloyd Evans. Those are his words. Some of his videos word it differently now. I think he's tried to change the wording. I was fortunate enough to catch this before he did, though. Generous support of my viewers, including hundreds of patrons. If you would like to support my work, you can do so. So people were donating money to your work, Lloyd. That does not mean that you earned wages like a doctor. The arrogance of assuming that everyone who's ever spent money to you would be okay with you using that money on prostitutes and infidelity. In your words, abuse. That's what you called it when you do something to somebody that they don't want you to do, and without thinking about the ramifications. You called that abuse. They donated to you assuming that money was not going towards the abuse of your spouse for 4 years. Continually putting her at risk of an STD. Unbelievable. Let's continue. Good grief. Oh yeah, this is a fun one. Skip forward.
I don't know what to say now, viewers. 2,468 watching.
You
You
are
all
the
like
one.
a good train wreck, it seems. Well, here's the number one train wreck. My life.
You are the one that has caused attention to all of this with all of your subscribers. But did you catch what he said there? This is, to me, quite rich.
You all like a good train wreck, it seems. Well, here's the number one train wreck. My life.
All right, so Lloyd Evans is the number one train wreck. His life is the number one train wreck. His words, not mine. Are you guys, in good faith, going to continue to support this channel? Are you going to continue to share his videos? Are you going to continue to enable his sex addiction, his lying, his deceitful behavior? That's up to you. I'm just raising the question. You guys can discuss this amongst yourselves. You guys know how heavily sex trafficking goes on in Thailand, right? I wonder how much money of patrons directly funded sex trafficking. Does anybody really know when they hire a prostitute whether or not they're doing it of their own free will? Does anybody really know when they hire a prostitute if she's doing it because she's addicted to drugs? Does anybody really know when they've hired a woman of the night in a country that's heavily sex trafficked, that she herself has not been taken away from her family and thrown into a life of use against her will? Do you know that? Do you think Lloyd knew for certain that every single time he hired one of these girls? He called them girls. Something to think about. All of this is definitely worth thinking about. And I resent the idea that this is not to be discussed. People who are trying to shut this down when he is the one who brought this to the table. Lloyd Evans opened this up for discussion. That's a fact. All right. Joel, the unwitness from the VAA, had some points that he wanted me to try and bring up. I scribbled down some of them, but I think we're going to have to do a separate video on it. But I will say a few things. He talked about there are a lot of questions that are raised here that apparently we're not allowed to ask. Like like the young people ask book, there's all of a sudden questions that we're not allowed to ask surrounding this thing. And I think that that's a really good point, and it's reprehensible. We need to figure this thing out and figure out what is the best way forward from this. And part of that is having a debate, having a discussion, you know, and not to be silenced by people who are just uncomfortable by the topic, or people who just think that he does too good of work to allow something like, a huge sex scandal to be discussed. He points out that there's a conflict of interest. Joel says that how is it that we're going to put this man who doesn't have mastery over his penis, who has admitted to being a sex addict, who has admitted to regularly visiting prostitutes, and lying, cheating on his wife, how are we going to trust this man with anything, let alone putting him around sex abuse victims? Definitely not being their champion. And it's well said, Joel. Like, no way. No way. Joel says that there's a pattern of manipulation with this guy. He has a cadence about him that's very Watchtower literature. He capitalizes on that to sway people into following him. And you'll notice just how crafty this guy is. As I've pointed out through this video, he shifted all of the blame away from himself and onto his sexual repression and onto the fact that his relationship wasn't ideal. There was no apology. I don't think Lloyd truly thinks he's done anything wrong here. There is one bit where he says, I hate what I did to my wife. And that's about it. Which is crazy to me. If you're taking a break and ending your channel and putting a subject like this to bed, you would think that there would be a long, drawn-out apology, fully laying out how disgusting he's behaved and how he's never going to do that again if it's within his power. And you don't see that here. There's a pattern of manipulation, cadence. Joel says that he's a man-child that has used the Watchtower to get donations. And I think that that's pretty right. That's bang on, considering that he still refers to women as girls. Subconsciously, I think that he is a man-child. I don't think that he's ever been forced to grow up from that scared elder in the congregation. No one's held him accountable. They've made excuses for him. And Joel also says that we deduced all this about this man years ago, and we tried to warn the public. You know, we were tipped off to how shady his dealings were a long time ago. People got so mad at us, asking for evidence, but I don't think what people understand is that when you have a relative of his wife there where he lives, who's feeding information to people. And we know that it's a real person, but he doesn't actually produce evidence. That's a problem. We understand that. That being said, this person, like, actually getting evidence is extremely difficult. And yeah, I understand that that's a really tricky and sticky situation. Be that what it is, you don't need those accusations to be brought to light to know that this guy has habitually been a problem and has done deceitful things, and it's all come to a head. And we tried to warn you guys about it years ago. There's a photo, by the way. I've been asked not to share it. But I think Kim or one of her friends is going to release it, and it is Lloyd Evans with a girl. His words. Now, how old she is? It's anybody's guess. Again, providing concrete evidence of things is tricky, but there is a photo. It will come to light, and I just think it's funny that this guy is going on a mental break and he's trying to figure things out, be better. Yet in Thailand, there is a photo that was also shared and released of him with an Asian girl. She could be anywhere from, I don't know, she could be anywhere from 14 to 21. It's difficult to say. But be on the lookout for it. If it doesn't get shared by the parties that I mentioned, I will share it myself because it's important that all this comes to light. As donors, as patrons, the ex-Jehovah's Witness community at large needs to know what they're putting their money and their support into. And that's all there is to it. I wrote a post. Let me go ahead and share this because I think I stated it pretty well. Is there no right and wrong? The shutting down of criticism suggests there is no such thing as right and wrong anymore. I hope you parents are teaching your daughters to be tolerant and accepting of repeated secret infidelity, because the example being set here will produce more of this behavior. If people are excusing Lloyd, then they're teaching their daughters to be tolerant and accept horrible behavior by men. They're also allowing other men to feel what he did was no big deal. We are a community, and he is the most famous, well-known, most shared XJW to date. His gross, unethical conduct is our business because he made it public. This blight is a stain on all of us, and it's made worse when people are seen defending him. People like to say I'm being judgy, like the elders. But if you're helping to cover up spouse abuse for 4 years, who is really being like a cult? He risked giving his wife an STD secretly for 4 years, abused her by his own terminology for that amount of time. Covering this up, telling people not to talk about it, and defending it, that would be the real cultish behavior, guys. All right. Enough out of me. Really hope that I covered everything that I want to cover here, but we could always do another video if we have to. And for the record, I'm not coming back to Jehovah's Witness related material. I I definitely don't want that anymore in my life. I've been very happy recently with the direction my life is taking, and I'm moving on. That being said, I haven't heard anybody calling this guy out over this stuff, which shocks and appalls me to my core. It makes me nauseous to think that there's a very real chance that this is just going to blow over and they're going to continue to share the hell out of this guy. And the Jehovah's Witness organization is going to be like, every time they see him mentioned, be like, yeah, but we know about this guy. For all we know, they're going to write an article about it in the Watchtower. He's got no legs to stand on anymore as an activist. Fateful Slave, I'm out.